Shevrin Jones, who is one of the most active Democratic senators, he actually knows how to do this communications and comms things that sometimes bedevil Democrats. And he is fighting it out in Tallahassee in the state of Florida. And he is one of the elected officials who was able to tour this in this concentration camp. There really is no other word for it. This is a good topic we could have talked about with peers, but he didn't want to talk about that. The fact that we are opening internment camps and concentration camps in the United States of America in the year of our Lord, 2025, several members of Congress got to see it, and several state senators and state lawmakers got to see it, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Maxwell Alejandro Frost. State Senator Shevrin Jones was one of those who did it. State Senator Shevrin Jones, hello, how are you, friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Talk to me, if you could, about what you saw when you toured this concentration camp that Ron DeSantis has opened in the state of Florida.
Yeah, Joy, first, thank you and congratulations to you in this in your new endeavor, which I'm very, very excited for you and to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Let me say this, that I want to start off by making it clear that we visited the site first on July the 3rd because it was told to us that this was a state-run facility. And according to the statute, we have the legislative authority to be able to visit state-run facilities or county-run facilities without notice. So we did that. We were stopped at the beginning. We were not even able to go through the gate of the facility because they met us with police officers who then called the agency the agency head to ask if we could come in. We spoke with the general counsel. The general counsel, we asked her a series of questions of why we could not go in, and she hung up on us because she said she lost signal. Fast forward, congressional members then we filed a lawsuit, but after we filed the lawsuit, it changed from it being a state-run facility to a federal-run facility. And so therefore, they allowed the congressional members to go in. It got leaked that the federal congressional members were coming. And so then they opened it up to everyone else. Once they opened it up to everyone else, we got to the facility. They tried to change the rules in the middle of the tour because when we got to the tour, they told us to arrive at 11 o'clock. But then once we got there, the day before, they changed the rules and said that they were splitting us up into groups. And the group that they are going to split us up in, that you are now have to be there at 10:15. We walk into the facility, Joy. Let me tell you what we saw. We saw men sitting on a bench, shackled by their hands, around their wrists, and around their ankles. And they sat there as they were going through the intake process. In that, what we saw, even asking to see the medical facilities as they walked us through what is happening inside, what they gave us this sanitized tour. They walked us and told us that we can't see the medical facilities because it goes against HIPAA. So they went to take us to where detainees were. This was the most upsetting part. That detainees were inside a cage in the area that we were in. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz checked the room to see how hot it was. It was 81 degrees in the area in where we were standing. Then we were physically blocked from getting inside to even do a walkthrough to where the detainees were at. They opened the door. We were blocked by contracted security guards who said we could not go in. We saw men sweating, head wraps around their heads. Individuals climbing on the gate like wanting to get out and chanting "Libertà, Libertà, Libertà, liberty, freedom." But they said that those individuals were unsafe. And then here's our end with this, and we can continue the conversation. They said that this site is supposed to be where the worst of the worst come, i.e. because of the name Alcatraz. But Joy, the wristbands were yellow, orange, and red. With yellow being civil infractions. Individuals who got pulled over for suspended licenses. Those were individuals who were in cages. 32 men to a cage. 32. And they fed them a turkey sandwich, some chips, and an apple. That is what we saw.
And can you confirm what Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz said, and I believe Congressman Maxwell Frost said the same thing, that these facilities, 32 men to a cage, had one toilet, sometimes two, sometimes not working, and that the only water supply was the same water supply that fed the toilet also fed the drinking water.
That is correct. That the same toilet that fed that was going through the line of the drinking water was the same toilet the same water that those detainees were drinking. And by mind you, the only privacy that those detainees had when they walked us through to see what's in there, the only privacy they had was a wood paneling that separated them from their other individuals who were being detained with them in their privacy.
Let's talk about the rules under which this camp is operating. There was a case, the situation in Newark, New Jersey. Of course, the mayor, Ras Baraka, questioned the legality of that private prison that is operating as an ICE detention facility there. And of course, he was detained and briefly arrested, and roundup the charges were dropped they claimed he was trespassing there. And there were 3 members of Congress, LaMonica McIver, now being charged, where they claim that she shoved an officer, which there's video showing she did not. But that was also about a very similar kind of facility. What law is this facility operating under in the state of Florida?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Joy, because I personally asked the agency head that question, and they told us that this was a quasi-federal state-run facility under the guise of the 287G program. Now, I'm clear that if the federal government, if the state of Florida is a part of the 287G program, that means that the federal government has given the state of Florida the rights to do, based off what the training is concerned, to do as they please. And that's why in the court filings make it clear that the DHS said, we have nothing to do with the arresting of detainees. All of this has happened with the state of Florida. So that lets us already know that the state of Florida, you're the one who are detaining these individuals. That's first. The second thing is that the agency head, Kevin Guthrie's, told us that they are using federal ICE standards to run the facility. But I'm confused by it, because even if they're using federal standards, the question is this a prison? Because these individuals who have civil infractions, you have them chained by their hands, feet, and around their waist. And at some point in time, Joy, they were referring to them as inmates and not detainees. And so my question continues to be, who runs the facility? And also, the federal, now, when certain questions were being asked, because Representative Askamani was asking about the contracting and all these different things, and people are trying to ask, how are we paying for this? How does Governor DeSantis get to spend this money without having to go to the legislature? Here's how. The governor declared this as an emergency, which allows him to be able to spend up to $500 million without having to go through the legislature. That's why the cost of this is $450 million. Because anything over that, he has to come through the legislature. Because if he was wanting to do this the right way, it would have gone through the legislative process. And if it had gone through the legislative process, I promise you, we would not have seen Alligator Alcatraz internment camp today. That's how they are doing this.
Who is paying for the merch, which is one of the most vile things that we've seen? I mean, there have been many, many internment camps and concentration camps throughout history. I don't think any has ever had merch attached to it. Who is paying for that? Are the Florida taxpayers paying to produce this really gross merch for this encampment?
To my understanding, it's being paid by the Republican Party of Florida, because it's being sold on their website. But the most egregious and most ugly part about all of this is that although it's done by the Republican Party of Florida, you have officials who are actually wearing the material, promoting the material, and saying that it's okay. And by mind you, for what it's worth, and I think it's worth a lot, especially for us as Black people, Alligator Alcatraz, in the comparison to what it and the meaning behind alligators and throwing Black babies, brown babies to alligators, I sometimes I even ask the question, is this your whistleblow moment that you are trying to go after right now? And I'm serious, based on the conversation that we have had before. My answer is yes.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, the term gator bait began in the state of Florida because during enslavement, white slave owners used to use black children and sometimes women and children as bait to try to catch alligators. They would put black infants on the ground in the Everglades to try to see if they could get an alligator to come and try to eat them, and that way they could catch the alligator. So that term came from there, and they used to create postcards which depicted black men, women, and children running barefoot from alligators. And I will note that Donald Trump recently said about this facility, which I prefer to call DeSantis's concentration camp in Florida, that he's excited to let inmates know how to run from alligators if they break out of prison. So he described it as a prison. One more question for you, State Senator. If they're using $500 million in emergency funding for this, and they claim they're going to build another one, they said they want to build a second one. What happens if there's a hurricane? What money would then be used to respond to a hurricane?
Well, that's the question that one of my Republican colleagues actually asked while we were on the tour to Kevin Guthrie's, and asked whether or not we are prepared for a hurricane that if and when it hits in Florida. No answer came to us, but the only answer they gave us was that the monies that's being spent is going to be reimbursed by FEMA. But the last we heard, FEMA said that this type of project does not qualify for reimbursement. And even if this was being funded through FEMA, you have to spend all of the money down before FEMA even pay you out for it. So the taxpayers are still paying for it, and it's like we're just spending money that we absolutely don't have. And to answer your last portion of your question, Joy, the next one that they're trying to open up, to my understanding, they've already started building it up in Jacksonville. But they're going to have to come to the legislature, which committee starts October 6th, to ask for those dollars. I'm not a betting man, but if I can put my best on this getting through the House, I don't see that happen.
Let me ask you this question, though. I know I said it was an next question, but I do have a couple more. Florida has, I would venture to say, at least from what I have read, lost money in terms of tourism. Tourism in Florida is down because of the unwelcoming environment that your governor created even before Project 2025 and Donald Trump came back to town. In addition to him suing Disney, which can't have helped tourism there. In addition to him suing cruise lines, which cannot have helped tourism there. And in addition to these raids, which are targeting mainly brown people, Latinos, who shore up the construction industry and the agriculture industry as laborers, meaning it's your workforce is essentially being threatened with being rounded up and deported or detained in this same kind of facility. If tourism is down and revenue from international investment, et cetera, is down, is the current governor of Florida trying to turn Florida's new industry into internment?
Well, I don't know whether that's the moment that he's trying to move in. It seems as such, right? And I also think it's important to point out that, Joy, the governor and the economist has already made it clear that in the next 5 years that Florida will be in a financial crisis if we do not figure out how to control our spending. And I think it's important to point out that the Republican Party of Florida have been in power for the last 27 years. So any financial woes that we are dealing with right now, it is all on them as we see it. Lastly, I believe that the governor and the Republicans are very clear on how tourism has backed off here in the state. Mm-hmm. So much so that even when they try to get rid of Visit Florida, they can't and they won't, because they already realize that people have already stopped coming to the state. So they need to figure out a way how to continue to market us across the country.
Yeah, how do you market Florida if, for instance, there's an active, Major League Soccer, team there. They're obviously very popular, football and NFL and other teams there. Why would any tourist want to come to watch, World Cup games in Miami if they could be detained and thrown on the ground by masked agents at any time based on the color of their skin? If I'm an international tourist and I'm not white, I'd be afraid to come. Or even if I was white and maybe had something on my phone that was critical of Donald Trump, I'd be afraid of being detained. Like, what does Visit Florida? What is the basis of their marketing? What's the pitch?
Disney World, Universal Studios, in the stream.
Where ICE already is too. ICE is at Disney. ICE is at Disney.
I know. Listen, they can't. Here's what I'll tell you: they are marketing what they know best. It's not as if they're marketing the state of Florida for all its goodness for the last 6 years. I can tell you that for a fact. But they are they market the same various things that they could get which they've been doing for so long. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Come for the mouse, stay for being tackled on the ground and dragged into an unmarked van. Yeah, I don't know that that's a really good pitch. State Senator Shevrin Jones, thank you, Shev. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you very much. Well, there you have it. Florida State Senator Shevrin Jones, who is in the state legislature, battling it out every day with these Republicans. I guess Florida's new big industry, it's not orange juice or the mouse or tourism or taking a cruise. It is internment camps, much the way that Louisiana has gone into the internment business and throwing people into jails, being a very lucrative business. I will also note that the private prison companies that are benefiting from these policies generally are big donors to Republicans, to Trump specifically, and to DeSantis. And so they're also sharing the wealth with people who've given money to them. Thank y'all for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe, share this channel. Make sure that everybody subscribe to the YouTube channel. 70% of people are lurking, watching these shows and not subscribing. Why would you do that? So make sure that you like, subscribe, and throw some comments in. Thank you all for joining the Joy Reid Show. See you on the next one, and goodbye for now.